I remember the first time I stumbled upon the ad on Craigslist. It was late at night, and I was mindlessly scrolling through the missed connections section, as I often did when insomnia struck. Most of the posts were mundane, filled with romantic yearnings from people who had shared fleeting moments in crowded places. But then, one caught my eye. The title was innocuous enough, Eyes That Met Mine's Coffee Shop. Intrigued, I clicked on it. The post described a chance encounter at a local coffee shop, where our eyes had supposedly met for a brief, electrifying moment. The author of the post claimed to have felt an immediate connection and was desperate to find the mysterious stranger. I chuckled to myself, dismissing it as another lonely soul seeking connection in the vast sea of anonymity that was the internet. But as I scrolled down, I noticed something that sent a shiver down my spine, a detailed description of my appearance. The post described my red scarf, the worn-out leather jacket, and even the book I had been reading that fateful day. My heart pounded in my chest as I read on. The author claimed to have followed me discreetly after our supposed encounter, wanting to learn more about me. My hands trembled as I reached the end of the post, where a chilling message awaited: I know where you live, and I'll be seeing you soon. Fear gripped me, and I quickly closed the browser, convincing myself it was just a sick joke. But the unease lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. I tried to shake off the paranoia, blaming it on an overactive imagination fueled by late-night anxiety. Little did I know, the nightmare was only beginning. Days turned into weeks, and the feeling of being watched became a constant companion. I noticed unfamiliar faces in the crowd, always lingering just beyond the edge of my vision. Shadows seemed to dance around corners, and the once familiar streets took on a sinister aura. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, my senses on high alert. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves, sent shivers down my spine. Sleep became elusive as nightmares invaded my nights, blending seamlessly with the waking horror that had become my reality. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found a package on my doorstep. It was a plain brown box with no return address. Hesitant but curious, I brought it inside and carefully opened it. Inside, I found a collection of photographs, snapshots of me, taken without my knowledge. They captured moments from my daily life, at work, at the grocery store, even in my own home. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I realized the depth of the violation. Someone had been watching me, documenting my every move. Panic set in, and I frantically searched the box for any clues. That's when I found a handwritten note tucked beneath the photographs. I told you I'd be seeing you soon. You can't escape me. Terror seized me, and I knew I had to involve the authorities. I rushed to the police station, armed with the box of evidence and the chilling Craigslist post. The officers took my statement, their expressions growing graver with each passing detail. They promised to look into the matter, urging me to stay vigilant. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation yielded no leads. The stalker remained elusive, leaving me in a perpetual state of fear. I installed security cameras around my apartment, changed my daily routines, and even considered moving to a new city. But the relentless sense of being hunted persisted. One night, as I lay in bed, the soft glow of the security monitors casting an eerie light across my room, I heard a faint sound, a whisper that seemed to dance on the edge of silence. I strained my ears, trying to make sense of the words. The voice was distorted, almost inhuman, but the message was clear. I see you, always. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with an unseen malevolence. I stumbled out of bed, my legs heavy with dread, and followed the sound of the voice. It led me to the hallway, where the whispering grew louder, echoing off the walls like a haunting melody. I reached the front door, my trembling hand inching towards the doorknob. The voice seemed to be just beyond the threshold, an ethereal presence that transcended the physical realm. With a deep breath, I swung the door open, only to be met with an empty hallway. The voice had vanished, leaving me standing alone in the silence of the night. As the days stretched into months, the paranormal occurrences escalated. Objects moved on their own, strange symbols appeared on my walls, and chilling laughter echoed through the stillness of my apartment. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a never-ending nightmare. Desperation led me to seek the help of paranormal investigators, hoping they could provide answers to the inexplicable horrors that plagued me. They conducted seances, used various tools to detect supernatural activity, and even brought in mediums to communicate with whatever entity had latched onto my life. The findings were unsettling. The investigators claimed that the spirit haunting me was malevolent, a vengeful force from beyond the grave. It harbored an intense hatred and had chosen me as its target, using the guise of a human stalker to sow fear and despair. According to the mediums, the spirit's connection to me ran deep, rooted in a past life that had ended in tragedy. As the investigators delved deeper into the paranormal realm, I couldn't shake the feeling that the malevolence stemmed from something more tangible, a darkness that lurked in the shadows of the living world. The line between the supernatural and the earthly became blurred, and I found myself on the precipice of a horror that transcended the boundaries of reason. One fateful night, as I sat alone in the dim glow of my apartment, a presence manifested before me. It was a shadowy figure, its form shifting and contorting in the darkness. I could feel the weight of its malevolence pressing down on me, suffocating and inescapable. "I have followed you through lifetimes, and I will not be denied my vengeance," the figure hissed, its voice a guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. In that moment, the room seemed to warp and twist, the walls closing in around me. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay, and the temperature plummeted as the figure advanced. I was paralyzed with terror, unable to escape the grasp of the malevolent force that had marked me as its prey. As the figure drew near, a blinding light erupted from the depths of my being. It was a surge of pure energy, a force that repelled the darkness that sought to consume me. The room vibrated with an otherworldly power as the figure recoiled, its form dissipating into the shadows. In the aftermath, I was left breathless and shaken, the echoes of the supernatural encounter lingering in the air. The investigators, who had witnessed the event, were at a loss for explanations. It seemed that a force beyond their understanding had intervened, saving me from the clutches of a vengeful spirit that had transcended the boundaries of life and death. In the days that followed, the paranormal activity gradually subsided. The oppressive atmosphere that had haunted my every step lifted, leaving me with a sense of uneasy peace. The investigators, unable to comprehend the true nature of the encounter, bid me farewell, their curiosity tempered by the lingering unease that surrounded my story. As I stood on the threshold of a new chapter, I couldn't shake the feeling that the malevolence that had tormented me was still out there, lurking in the shadows. The line between the supernatural and the tangible had blurred, leaving me with a chilling uncertainty about the nature of the forces that had shaped my harrowing experience. The Craigslist post, the photographs, and the whispered threats had been a prelude to a horror that transcended the boundaries of the living world. Whether it was a malevolent spirit seeking vengeance or a criminal stalker with a connection to the supernatural, I had glimpsed a darkness that defied explanation. As I moved forward, forever changed by the ordeal, I couldn't escape the haunting question that lingered in the recesses of my mind: what other horrors lurked in the shadows, waiting to be unveiled in the twisted tapestry of the unknown? The true nature of the Craigslist horror story remained an enigma, a chilling testament to the thin veil that separates the living from the realm of the supernatural. I never thought a simple Craigslist transaction could turn into a nightmarish descent into darkness. It all began innocently enough. I was selling an old guitar that had been gathering dust in my closet. A potential buyer, going by the name Alex, reached out, expressing interest in the instrument. Little did I know that this transaction would lead me into the clutches of a killer. We agreed to meet in a secluded park, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. I arrived early, the setting sun casting long shadows across the deserted pathways. As I waited on a park bench, the air grew thick with tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I brushed it aside, attributing it to nerves. Soon, a figure emerged from the fading daylight, and I recognized Alex from the photo provided. He was a tall, wiry man with piercing eyes that seemed to dissect the world around him. He wore a faded leather jacket that hung loosely on his frame, and a subtle, unsettling grin played on his lips. "Hey, you're the one with the guitar?" he asked, his voice smooth but devoid of warmth. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, my discomfort growing. Alex inspected the guitar with a disinterested glance, his eyes never leaving mine. After a brief moment, he nodded and pulled out a wad of cash from his pocket. "I'll take it." "Let's make this quick," he said. I handed him the guitar, and he counted out the money, his gaze never wavering. As he pocketed the instrument, I expected a simple thank you or a nod of acknowledgement. Instead, his grin widened, revealing a hint of malevolence that sent a chill down my spine. "Nice doing business with you," he said, his tone carrying a sinister edge. As Alex turned to leave, an instinctual dread seized me. I watched him walk away, disappearing into the gathering darkness. The unease lingered, but I dismissed it as paranoia, convincing myself that the transaction was over and I could put this unsettling encounter behind me. That night, however, my sense of relief shattered. The local news reported a gruesome murder in the same park where I had met Alex. The victim's description matched him, the faded leather jacket, the piercing eyes. The details were grisly, the kind of horror that sends shivers down your spine. As the police investigated, I found myself entangled in a web of fear and guilt. The guitar, the instrument that had once been a mere possession, now felt like a cursed relic linking me to a brutal crime. The authorities contacted me, asking about the transaction and pressing for any details that could aid in their investigation. I recounted the encounter with Alex, describing his appearance, demeanor, and the chilling grin etched in my memory. The police assured me that they were doing everything they could to apprehend the killer, but the specter of that night haunted my every waking moment. Days turned into sleepless nights as the weight of the murder hung over me. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, paranoid that Alex's malevolent gaze was still upon me. The once familiar streets transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, concealing the unknown dangers that lurked within. Then came the messages. Late at night, my phone buzzed with texts from an unknown number. The first one read, "You talked to the police. You shouldn't have done that." Panic gripped me as I read the words, the sender's intent clear, a silent warning that I had trespassed into dangerous territory. I tried to trace the number, but it led to a dead end. The messages continued, each one more menacing than the last. "I know where you live," one said. "You can't hide from me," another threatened. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I was being stalked by the same person who had committed murder in that desolate park. The authorities, aware of the threats, increased their presence in my neighborhood. I was provided with a panic button and urged to stay vigilant. But the messages persisted, each one a reminder that the line between victim and witness had blurred into a nightmarish amalgamation. One night, as I lay in bed, a shadow flickered across my window. I jolted upright, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was plunged into darkness, the only sound the rhythmic beating of my own fear-stricken heart. I fumbled for the panic button, praying that help would arrive in time. As I pressed the button, a cold voice whispered from the shadows, "You can't escape me." The words hung in the air, a spectral threat that sent shivers down my spine. Within moments, the police flooded into my apartment, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The room was empty, the intruder gone without a trace. The police conducted a thorough search, but the stalker had vanished into the night, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with dread. The messages, however, continued, each one more taunting and sadistic than the last. In the midst of this living nightmare, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a cryptic message that hinted at the true motive behind the murder and the subsequent torment. "You know too much," the text read. "There are secrets that must remain buried." It dawned on me that Alex's victim wasn't random. The murder wasn't a mere act of violence, it was a desperate attempt to silence someone who held dangerous knowledge. I had become an unwitting witness to a dark conspiracy, a pawn in a deadly game that stretched beyond the boundaries of comprehension. The police, now aware of the possible motives, intensified their efforts. I was placed under protective custody, my every move monitored to ensure my safety. But the stalker's messages persisted, a relentless barrage that hinted at a malevolent force determined to erase any traces of the truth. As the investigation delved deeper, a web of corruption and deceit unraveled. The victim, it turned out, had stumbled upon a clandestine operation that implicated powerful figures. The murder wasn't just about silencing an individual, it was a desperate attempt to conceal a truth that could shatter the foundations of the powerful. In the end, the police managed to apprehend those responsible for the murder and the subsequent campaign of terror. The dark conspiracy, once hidden in the shadows, was exposed to the harsh light of justice. As the truth emerged, I found myself caught in the crossfire of a battle between good and evil, a witness to the dark underbelly that thrived beneath the surface of the seemingly ordinary. The Craigslist transaction, initially a mundane exchange, had become a catalyst for a chain of events that plunged me into a world of murder, conspiracy, and unrelenting horror. The scars, both physical and psychological, served as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most innocuous encounters can lead to the darkest corners of the human experience. My Craigslist encounter started innocently enough. I was looking for a used bookshelf, hoping to find a good deal to furnish my new apartment. A listing caught my eye: vintage bookshelf, excellent condition. The seller went by the name Evelyn, and we quickly arranged a meeting at her place. I arrived at a quaint suburban house, the kind you'd expect to find in any neighborhood. As I approached the front door, I sensed an odd energy, an unease that clung to the air. Ignoring the gut feeling, I rang the doorbell. Evelyn greeted me with a strained smile, her eyes darting around as if scanning for hidden threats. She led me into a dimly lit living room cluttered with odd trinkets and tattered furniture. The vintage bookshelf stood in a corner, overshadowed by the eccentricities that adorned the room. As we negotiated the sale, I couldn't help but notice the erratic shifts in Evelyn's behavior. She spoke in disjointed sentences, her eyes flickering with a manic intensity. It became apparent that something was amiss, a fragile thread tethering her to reality. While I hesitated, contemplating whether to proceed with the purchase, Evelyn's demeanor took a sudden turn. She fixated on a seemingly mundane object, a porcelain doll on a nearby shelf. Her eyes widened, and she began muttering to herself, lost in a delusional narrative that unfolded in real time. Unease tightened its grip on me as Evelyn's erratic behavior escalated. She spoke of invisible entities, conspiracies that spanned dimensions, and a grandiose delusion that she held the key to unraveling the mysteries of the universe. I was caught in the crossfire of her unraveling sanity, a witness to the disintegration of a fragile mind. Attempting to de-escalate the situation, I politely excused myself, claiming I needed to reconsider the purchase. Evelyn's response was chilling, a sudden shift from mania to a cold, calculating gaze. She insisted that I couldn't leave, that I was integral to her cosmic revelation. Fear pulsated through my veins as I made a hasty retreat. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind, her delusions taking on an unsettling clarity. I reported the incident to the police, providing a detailed account of the bizarre encounter. They assured me they would look into it, but the lingering sense of dread remained. One night, as I walked home, the boundary between the imagined and the tangible blurred. I heard whispers in the wind, distorted voices that seemed to beckon me into the abyss. Shadows danced on the periphery of my vision, morphing into grotesque shapes that mimicked Evelyn's delusional narratives. In a moment of terror, I questioned my own sanity. Had Evelyn's madness infected my perception of reality? The line between victim and witness blurred as I grappled with the haunting aftermath of our Craigslist encounter. The police, unable to locate Evelyn, deemed her a missing person with a history of mental health struggles.